Ah yes, the canyon. One of many maps that Flippy has created for us in a rapid decreasing attention spans, and for many years it has gone through many updates, as with the map expansion in the famous 1.2 water update. And the canyon map has been in the game since May 21 of 2017, a little over 8 years now, and pretty much has everything it needs but one thing. Of course, I'm talking about the battle mode spawn problem. It has bugged players for years now, but now that changes, because on July 23rd of 2026, the battle mode and Zeppelin community changed forever, because Flippy has made 2 all-new airstrips for the canyon, along with other game-changing features, as of new bricks, a new material, and a new UI that has some mixed opinions with its accessibility. But now, without further ado with this amazing update, let's get into Update 1.11. So since we're only on the topic of the canyon update, let's start with that first. So yes, it is true that the canyon map got 2 new airstrips, and it's actually something that the playing community, or the breakage community, have been asking for basically 8 years now, especially when Zeppelin battle servers became a thing in late 2024. See, since the game's creator, Flippy, had distanced the BRFA and the Desert Worms away from each other, he had to put 2 separate spawn points. The first one being the Desert Worms, which wasn't a problem as there was plenty of space for planes and Zeppelins to take off. But there's BRAF, and as you can see, there's literally no space here. Sure, you can maneuver a small plane up the hills, but a Zeppelin is another story. You pretty much have to pray that your airship won't disintegrate every time you spawn one in. And if you join any BRZW server and find yourself on BRAF, you know you're going to have a bad day. In fact, I have seen this case for myself, as I've seen players join and then just flat out leave the server after they find out they're on BRAF. But this airport update changes everything, and it's a massive win for the Zeppelin community. So let's take a look at them. First, let's start with the BRF one. When you spawn at it, you're made of a dirt airstrip, certainly not made for airliners, but it does get the job done. And if you walk around the hangar, you'll find yourself a fuel tank, which is actually a good strategy to wipe out the whole field at once, if you can get there fast enough. And right next to the fuel tank is the classic outpickup.brv, which you all know and love. And over here is the driveway up to the airstrip, but that's all I was able to find there, so let's move on to the Desert Worms airstrip. The first thing that you see is the new Brickworks UI, which I'll get into towards the end of this video. But however, right behind you is a camper. But if you walk in front of the hangar, you see that Flippy was generous enough to add 2 street lamps, which is very unusual for Flippy to do. There's also a shipping container on the side of the hangar, but I forgot to mention that the airstrip is made out of asphalt, not dirt. And there's a driveway leading to the original Desert Worm spawn point. But that was all I was able to cover with the airstrips, but I do have to say that this is a game-changing feature on Brickworks, and for the Zeppelin community as a whole. But since we're done with this section, let's move on to the new bricks and the material that we've all been waiting for. For a long time now, we've been waiting for a material that would be a nice detail to your build, especially if you like making buildings. And at this point, you probably know what I'm talking about. Of course, it's the concrete material, and I know that the community has been waiting for this for years now. So let's take a look at it. So here we have the all-new concrete material in its classic cinder block form. The texture is actually pretty accurate for a 2D image. And I actually like it not having any paint on it because Flippy nailed the coloring of it. And it's a great replacement from the usual foam and steel and sometimes plastic material that the community has used before. And you'll definitely be seeing this go through your window. But anyway, let's see the 2 new bricks now. The first one we have is a triangle cemented inside of a cylinder. And honestly, I don't see how I'll be able to use this, but it's good to have something like this just in case. But then we have this brick. I actually see this brick being used for a corner of a truck bed, along with some other things. So all these bricks may not be used often as Flippy intended, but it is good to have. Sorry, I don't have much more to talk about these bricks, but this is all I was able to conjure up to say. So without further ado, let's move on to the next quote-unquote the new accessible UI. Imagine You just got done with an honest good day's walk mowing the lawn for an hour, and it just put everything up. So obviously the first thing you do is go straight to the computer and see what's happening inside the group chat. Turns out that a new update on your favorite game just got released just 20 minutes ago. And without hesitation, you update and launch the game, and the first thing you see is this.
Are you serious, my brother?
This is a scenario that I actually had after 2 hours of reading the fence flow. And when I saw the new UI for the first time, I just sat there and just... So, what do you think? So yeah, I didn't like how it looked. And then I looked over to the group chat and I immediately saw everyone clowning on the new UI update. And how the creator said it was made to be more accessible. Which turns out to be the opposite for most people. And they also said that the new font was cluttered and harder to read along. And a lot of other things about the UI that I won't be able to mention in the video. Personally, I had to scale my UI to 75% to 85% so that way I could see the chat properly. You know, I'm just gonna call off the middleman here and say that I don't like the UI update either, as it has a lot of unnecessary components. But I have to take a step back and realize that this has happened before with the original one that we used to have. So here's my hot take. So when we had our legacy UI updated to this one, and obviously a lot of people were mad about it. Not because of its looks, but rather than its accessibility. See, they were used to the legacy UI because they knew how to get around to it. But when the new UI came out, they had no idea how to use it because they were so used to the old one. See what I'm talking about here? It seems like the new UI thing is repeating the same hate that it did to the old one that was added. So this is just a case where Breakaway's history is repeating itself. But I do want to say one thing, and it's that anytime when any UI gets updated, you shouldn't get mad at it, but rather realize it's going to take a bit to get used to. And after all, I do see this being useful for beginners. But other than its dislikes, I can appreciate the work behind it. But since there's not much more to talk about, let's move on to the next and last chapter. Before we end the video entirely, let's go over the last 3 things. The first one is the random weather button. Now this only works when you're on the main menu, not in the map. If you press the random button and hop on to the map, you see that it works. And usually along the lines just being cloudy, but in some cases it can rain, thunderstorm, and even snow sometimes. And sometimes it changes when you're playing in the map. This feature isn't very useful, but it's a neat thing to have because I can't see this being used in RP servers. The second feature is that now you can add collections to your own night list. It's a pretty neat thing to have, so that way you don't have to add cars or whatever else to be meticulously added one by one. But when I was testing this feature, I accidentally ended up breaking it, making it go to 57 items to the usual 50 item limit. So this is a bit buggy, and it may happen to you. I don't know if this is a glitch or a bug yet, but we may have to see when the full update releases. But anyway, and lastly, we have the new free cam indicator. I know that a lot of you had trouble spotting things, but this new one fixes that because there's now an arrow inside of the spawn box to show you where the workshop item is going to spawn. And the box itself was remade a bit. You can also rotate it with the keys 1 and 3, but I don't particularly remember if this was always a feature. So let me know in the comments about that. And as much as I want to cover these features, Paul, unfortunately there's none left. And before I go, I just want to let you know that I like covering these updates with you guys and learn something in the process. And I also like making these videos for future players to come. And remember that you always can comment down below and say what you think about the video or just say it's just a good video in general. But otherwise, as always, have a good day. And also don't let a snowball go through your window.
Hello, your neighbor. Goodbye, see you later. This place was up on you to see if you get from me. Yeah! Are
I do not use my to torture my guests. Any torment I inflict is 100% accidental, like any capable creature.
We weren't even talking about that. I really couldn't give less of a about the adventure.
Then what is your problem? I'm trying my best to remember, but you and San Francisco won't tell me.
Battle bus, man.